So many of the videos on this channel have to do with mostly beginner stuff. We try and gear every video towards beginners because we want people to get into the hobby and have some success with these plants and kind of get a feel for what they're doing. But in today's video, we're going to be touching on 3 plants that are maybe in like the middle ground, not quite expert, but not quite beginner. So if you want to take a look at these plants and maybe further your planting hobby into more of an intermediate space, stay tuned to check them out. So what's going on, guys? Justin from H2O Plants, and today I got 3 uniquely colored plants. And by uniquely, some of them are red, some of them are orange, and some of them are actually yellow and or golden, however you want to call it, but they are yellow in color. So it's going to be a really cool plant to look at, and I'm really excited about showing these. These plants will need about moderate light. One of them can get away with like lowish light, but typically you would want it somewhat decent light. And just so you know what I'm keeping these guys in, right now they are currently in a tank with Fluval 2.0 lights in a 40-gallon tank. So it's about medium light. It's like the average hobbyist would have. Now, if you have a larger aquarium with a lesser light, you may not do too well with these plants, but if you have a smaller aquarium with a really good light, such as like a Fluval 3.0, or if you have something like a SB Reef light or something like that, these plants will definitely thrive. The more light you could throw at these guys, the better, and the better coloration they will have. Now, for all of these plants, pretty much CO2 will always be beneficial, and for 2 of them, it's really required. But I will say, all 3 of these plants are currently in our grow out tanks, and right now I haven't actually refilled our CO2. I've been letting it go, kind of seeing what it's going to do without CO2. So far they've been doing alright. So that's really going to depend on the light that you have and your tank conditions, but just know that CO2 will definitely help 2 of these, and I'll mention which ones they are when we get to it. So the first plant that I want to look at is actually Nesaea golden, which is actually a golden-esque plant. Now, you can see here, it's light. It's almost like a light green out of water, but towards the top they are getting a bit yellowish. They're more of like a darker hue yellow, but there is some green, and the stems are almost like a tannish red color. So now these are a very kind of easier stem to grow. These are the ones that don't need CO2, but will definitely benefit from it. Don't get me wrong. Any stem plant will love CO2. So pretty much if you have CO2, these guys will be good, but they do alright under low to medium light, but higher light will definitely bring out more yellows. Now, pretty much all 3 plants that I'm going to be showing are all super slow growers. Just keep that in mind when you have these. These are not your average Ludwigia or Rotala or Hygrophila that is just going to grow, you know, a foot a month or something like that. Some crazy stuff that these other plants do. You'll be lucky if you'll get 6 inches in a month out of these guys. Typically, you're maybe expecting more of like an inch every 2 weeks, if you're lucky, depending on your conditions. If you have CO2, that's going to speed things up. Now, they do like heavy nutrients, all 3 of these plants, so having a good substrate and or dosing nutrients is ideal. They are definitely a, you know, slower grower that likes to have nutrients, likes to have high light, and they do their thing. Now, much like other stem plants, all 3 of these, when you trim them, you could just cut them across. And at the top, you could actually see it on this guy right here. Let's see if I can get it. Right there, there's like a little stem poking up because that branch broke there. And that'll be a new stem. Now, these guys are prone to melting when they first get into an aquarium. They are a very sensitive species. Actually, all 3 of these are. You'll usually wind up losing most of their leaves, but at the same time, you should see new growth popping up at the top, which is normally a good sign. When you look at these leaves, the greener leaves towards the bottom are all old growth, and the yellowish leaves at the top are the newer growth. And that's just because this has been in our aquariums for a couple weeks now. So you'll definitely want to be trimming these guys often because you don't want the bottom stems to get shaded. These guys will often lose their leaves if they get shaded for any amount of time. So you want to actually separate out the stems as you plant them, so separate them from the bunch and plant them a couple inches apart from each other so they can really grow out. And then you're going to trim the tops constantly, allow them to get really bushy, and the bushier they get, the better. But also you're allowing the bottom leaves to still maintain getting light, and therefore they don't die out and look kind of like bare at the bottom like this. Now, this is normal when you first get them, and you're going to plant them and you're going to do that trimming and keeping them bushy, but just keep in mind that you want to trim these guys more often than you would other plants, just because, like Ludwigias, yeah, they'll lose the bottom leaves if you don't trim them, but they grow so fast that it doesn't matter. With these guys, if you don't go in and trim them and you lose those bottom leaves, you're not going to get any new growth for quite a while once you trim them, because it takes so long for them to, you know, propagate and stuff. So your stems are going to look quite bare. So keep that in mind. Definitely trim these guys up, you know, within a month of you having them in the tank. I would clip off the tops or just take them halfway down and replant the tops and keep the bottom stems and let them grow out new side shoots. So Nesaea golden, very nice yellowy plant. One of the only plants that is naturally yellow in the aquarium hobby. Like, this is the only plant that you could actually get that yellow hue in, that I've seen anyway. There may be other ones, but nothing that I've seen lately. So after Nesaea golden, we got Ammania Senegalensis, or Senegalensis. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it is a very larger plant. As you can see, this is a larger leaves down here at the bottom. Now, these leaves were grown above the water, and these leaves are grown underwater in our aquariums. And actually, the stems are quite thick. If you see there, they're almost like the thickness of, say, a pencil almost. Very similar. Towards the top here, they're a little bit narrower. They're just because these have been growing underwater. And you can see the beautiful, like, orangey red color that they are. I'll also make sure that I get some underwater shots of each of these plants. They are a very slow grower as well. However, these guys have been growing quite well for us. I would say that we got them probably about here, maybe about 3 weeks ago or so, and now they're up to there. So they're doing quite well. A little bit faster than I expected with these guys. Much like the Nesaea golden, spread them out, don't leave them bunched up. Really, any stem plant, you don't want to leave bunched up like this. You want to spread out the stems, let them do their things. Definitely trim them back, same thing as they grow out. Make sure that they have offshoots, make sure their bottom leaves aren't getting shaded. Now, these bottom leaves here are going to die out anyway, so what you would want to do is, because the stem is nice and red, and the kind of the above water growth is green here, you're just gonna wait till you have all red, or you could even, if you wanted to, just trim them at the red before you even put them in your aquarium if you want to. I recommend let them grow out for a bit in your aquarium before you do so, and then you can trim them up as you see fit. But they're a really interesting, bigger leaf plant. They have a thicker stem than most stem plants, so they're very on par with high-grow willow, which we covered in a different video. If you want to check that out, you can click up top. But high-grow willow is a very large stem plant, and this is right up there with it, although albeit a little bit smaller. As you can see, the leaves aren't spreading out as much, but like I said, no CO2 in these aquariums, so if they had CO2, I'd expect these to be a bit bigger. Pretty much the same thing with the Nesaea golden, except these guys would really like CO2. Now, like I said, we're growing it without CO2. We have it in our aquariums, and they're doing just fine. Now, I don't know long-term if that'll actually work out for you, so just keep that in mind. CO2 should really be required for this plant, but if you want to test your luck, hey, go for it, you know. That's what we're doing. We're trying our luck without CO2 on these guys. But very beautiful, orangey, reddish plant, pinkish plant. Nothing like any other plant you'll see. Next up, I have this plant here. This is Ammania Gracilis. Now, it's not doing the best in the tank that we have it in. I think it's because the lighting and or it was covered in duckweed for quite some time, the tank, and so it was getting minimal lighting. So I don't know why it's not looking as good as it should, but I still wanted to show it in any case because it's very similar to these, and I thought I'd, you know, just put them all in one video here. But it is Ammania Gracilis. Now, Ammania Gracilis has more needle leaves, so this is a bit of a smaller variation, but they can be bigger. The lack of CO2 in this is definitely influencing its growth habits here, because you can see the bigger leaves down here. You can see the bigger leaves there. And there is a little bit of algae on this one right now. I'm not quite sure why. I think it has something to do with the duckweed and stuff and the reemergence of the full light, basically. But it had very beautiful, like, coppery pink color to it, almost like a red. You can see there. And the leaves are quite narrow, so it's a very nice plant. It kind of in the same line as the other Ammania Senegalensis. You want to trim these guys, trim them often, keep the bottom leaves from getting shaded. CO2 usually is required for this, although, like I said, no CO2 currently in our aquarium, but this one is suffering a bit from that. You also want heavy, good substrate for this, so lots of fertilizer, lots of root tabs will do well with this, and a good, decent light will definitely bring out the nice coppery pink color here. That's really nice. But yeah, that's really it on these three plants. I mean, they're, like I said, they're not the beginner-friendly plants that we typically cover, but they are, you know, if you already have your feet wet with some plants, these are worth giving it a go. I would say Nesaea golden is definitely an easy one to start out with. And that one is one of the ones that I have the most success with long term. So I would try that one and then maybe try the other ones too if you're interested in giving it a shot, maybe getting some different colored reds that maybe require a little bit more. Anyway, if you have any of these plants in your aquarium or you're thinking about getting them, leave me a comment down below. Or if you want to see me cover a future plant in one of these plant guides, feel free to leave a comment. Tell me which plant you want to see. I've done most of them, but I'm still finding some. I'm like, I haven't done a video on that yet. Let me do a video on it, like these. So figured I'd showcase them while I have them. Sometimes we don't have them in stock. They're kind of almost like a seasonal type thing. I get them sometimes, and then they go on like a, I don't know, like a reserve list that you can't get them for quite some time. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you're new here and you like planted aquarium content or want to see more plant content in general, just hit that subscribe button. If you want to check out our last video that we did on the neglected goldfish tank, we kind of remodeled it, you can click over there. If you want to check out a random video that YouTube's going to decide that's really good for you, you can click right there. I will see you guys next time.